Okay, welcome everyone to our Optimizing Facility Safety with Remote Water Control Engineer webinar. My name is Greg Jackman. I'm the Specification Program Specialist here at Watts. I'm also the host of this Watts Works Engineer webinar series. If this is your first time joining us, just to let you know that this entire series is designed specifically for you guys, our engineers, our architects, and our specifier customers. Bruce, next slide. Just to give you a little bit of background on the series, we hold several webinars throughout the year that cover a variety of topics. Our presenters are usually our in-house technology and product experts. And thanks to our partnership with ASPE, we're able to provide you with the 0.1 ASPE CU credit if you stick around for the entire webinar. And that credit will be emailed to you in the next few days. Next slide. So for the duration of today's discussion, you will be muted, but we do want to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you'd like to ask a question verbally, please raise your hand. To do that, you just need to click on the participants button at the bottom right hand of the WebEx, right underneath the attendee menu. Click on the hand icon and I'll unmute your line and you can ask your question. Next slide. And of course, if you prefer to type in your question, we have the Q&A feature. Just click those three dots at the bottom of the WebEx and you can see the widget there. You can type in your question and then I'll read them as we go along or after the presentation as time allows. Next slide. So with all that being said, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today, Bruce Fathers. Bruce is our Senior Product Manager of Heating Product Portfolio at Watts. He's been active in mixing valves for over 25 years, holding positions in product management and marketing. Bruce has also authored numerous articles on hot water safety for commercial applications and received his MBA from DePaul University in Chicago. So with that said, let me pass it off to Bruce to get started.
All right, thanks, Greg. Appreciate everybody joining. So basically what we want to talk about today is not only digital mixing, but smart and connected, and the value that that provides facilities. So we want to, again, talk about, when we talk about value around smart and connected, we want to talk about remote water control and monitoring and the benefits that that brings, whether you're in a building or outside of a building. And we'll talk a little bit about how COVID has kind of impacted the growth of smart and connected and the need for smart and connected. We'll also talk about how digital mixing combined with IoT, the Internet of Things, gives us the ability to respond quickly to instances within a facility or facilities, which of course is going to translate into greater safety, greater efficiency, and the protection basically of building occupants and guests and patients. We're going to talk a little bit about, apps and how the smart and connected now gives you essentially another way to connect to your critical assets. And just amount of data and the amount of data that's available to you with smart and connected devices as we're kind of communicating back and forth with the cloud and sending up data, and then what can be actually done with that data. So there's, we want to primarily focus on smart and connected, again, around water mixing in this session. But again, as Greg said, feel free to ask questions along the way, and we'll do the best we can to answer them. So before I get kind of tee up smart and connected, I want to just kind of take a step back to digital mixing, right? So just outside of kind of this whole Internet of Things that we're going to be talking about, over the last number of years, you've seen probably seen a transition to digital mixing from kind of pure thermostatic mixing, and that we're seeing that transition continue to take place. And some of the key benefits just of digital mixing alone are temperature control, right? The algorithms, the sensor technology, the communications is allowing us to control temperature much tighter to set point than traditional thermostatic mixing valve do, kind of described in or set out in ASSC 1017. Again, depending on the capacity, a traditional thermostatic mixing valve needs to control between plus or minus 3 and plus or minus 7. Digital is plus or minus 2, essentially, plus or minus 3, depending on the manufacturer. There's the communications part to digital mixing, which is obviously very critical, right? We now can incorporate not only building automation, through Modbus or BACnet or LawnWorks or some of these other protocols, but now we're also bringing in now cloud connectivity into play. There's things you can do with digital mixing that you can't do with a traditional thermostatic mixing valve, like temperature setback for greater efficiency, where if you're a school or an office building, you can essentially in the evenings or during weekends, you may decide to set because your occupancy is low or near zero, you may decide to set your mixed outlet temperature back. So that's going to save money. Most digital mixers have some type of sanitization feature mode that you can, again, with the proper protocols in place at various facilities, at the point of use side, you can set programs or for high temperature hot water to sanitize. There's a self-balancing feature to digital mixing because of the tight closure on the hot water inlet. There's the need for balancing actually almost goes completely away. There's digital interfaces for accuracy. Digital mixing valves can send out alerts, which is critical. There's data capture for data logging, for mitigating potential liability. And then another thing that's really, I think, critical that's not on here is approach temperatures. Digital mixing valves, for the most part, have very low approach temperatures, where thermostatic mixing valves can be very high, which means the temperature of the incoming hot water, you can, with many of the brands, you can basically, your inlet hot water temperature is within a degree or two of what your outlet temperature needs to be. With thermostatic valves, we see approach temperatures of 10 to 20 degrees, which are very significant. And then, how do all these features really translate into return on investment? And there are calculators out there that allow you to kind of do some very good estimates of, depending on your particular situation or installation, where you're located, the type of heat, hot water source, can do some fairly quick calculations based on the tighter temperature control versus thermostatic, and then if you're doing setbacks. So it can kind of give you just kind of an estimate of really value, because I think that's one of the things that's really important to talk about is the actual value and being able to monetize that. So digital mixing alone, just to kind of set a foundation, is very important in terms of the value that it brings to a particular installation or customer.
Bruce, did you want to do the first poll at this point?
Sure. Yeah, let's do the first poll. Yep.
So first question here, you'll see on the right side of your screen, are you specifying or installing digital mixing valves on your project at your site? Yes or no? Pop up the results in 10 seconds or so.
I'm still waiting.
Right. Yeah, it looks like most people have answered, and let me put the polls up for you, Bruce, the results.
Okay. So are you specifying or installing digital mixing valves? 36 out of 112, it looks like, said yes, and 34 out of 112 said no, and then there were 42 no answers. So for the people that responded, it's about 50-50. And I think that's actually indicative of kind of where we're at right now. I think if you would have taken this poll a year ago or 5 years ago, the people that answered yes would have been much lower. And so what we're seeing is, as people are kind of understanding the value proposition of digital mixing valves, we're beginning to see more and more of a transition. And as we look into the future, like we're going to talk about here over the next few minutes, I think it's going to become more prevalent. So yeah, thank you for responding to that. So let's talk about IoT a little bit, the Internet of Things. So I'm going to, over the next couple slides, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you that are kind of mind-boggling. They're not all in total alignment. It depends on who you're talking to, but they're all big numbers, right? And they're all trending in the right direction, at least in terms of the growth of the smart and connected world that we're living in. So right now, as of this year, they're saying that 5 million devices are connected every day through the Internet of Things, 5.7 million. And there are some estimates, a research group called IDC estimates that by 2025, we'll be connecting 152,000 devices every second. So that's kind of mind blowing. So, and then again, this is everything, right? This encompasses all industries and types of products and whatever. But it just gets, again, to show you the value of smart and connected. Most of what we all use, right? You have a smartphone. You're probably using some smart and connected devices. When you look at, if you want to look at even some bigger numbers here. So in 2020. It's estimated that there were 31 billion IoT devices out there installed. This year, they'll add another 4 billion to 35, and then by 2025, they're talking like 75 billion. So again, staggering numbers. By 2026, they're saying that the value of those installed devices will be about 1.4 trillion, which is almost double from where we're at right now. And the CAGR is about 10.5%, so pretty healthy CAGR. Healthcare market, which is obviously very important to a lot of us that are doing commercial projects, $14 billion, so, and a 12.2% CAGR. So strong double-digit growth, obviously moving into the future. So this really, the point of this is IoT is becoming a very big deal. And on top of that, let's just focus a little bit on what COVID has done. So contracting business in June 2020, one of their editions basically said that, COVID now has kind of brought to light, has created more awareness or a need for, remote connectivity, right? To ensure safe working conditions for its occupants. Being able to remotely monitor and control buildings reduces exposure risks. And again, it provides managers with operational visibility and control, which is becoming more critical. If there was a study by Microsoft in 2020 that basically said 1 in 3 decision makers plan to up their IoT investments just based on COVID alone. So kind of this drive again towards remotely connecting, monitoring, receiving alerts, being kind of being able to do that off-site is becoming more and more critical.
Bruce, did you want to do the second poll?
Yep, let's do that, please.
All right. Opening it up now to everyone. Do you specify IoT products or employ IoT connectivity on your site? Another yes and no. Yes or no. Give it about 20 seconds here.
So this is probably more directed for the people that responded yes to the digital mixing question or to other digitally enabled products, but this could be for anything too. This doesn't have to be specifically around digital mixing. It could be for other products as well.
All right, polls closed and the results are up.
Okay. So we 24 out of 118. So we've had a few people join, said yes, 32 said no, and there was 62 that did not respond. So, for commercial installations, I read a figure that right now, roughly around 40% of commercial installations are employing or enabling some type of IoT within their buildings or their systems. So these numbers are a little bit a little bit lower than that, but again, that's kind of a high level number. But again, the trending here is I think what's important over the the past years, and I think what we're going to see. I think part of this is going to be again kind of proving and showing and monetizing and demonstrating that value prop, in particular to facilities that are going to want to incorporate this. And really, when we look overall with IoT, I mean, we're just looking at the end game is really a reduction in operation and maintenance costs, right? ROI is critical. Improving productivity and efficiency is obviously critical. Providing faster response times to issues, right? Being able to target those issues as opposed to kind of being being more proactive versus reactive. And then just overall, again, improving worker, user, occupant safety is very critical. And so we're going to take some of these kind of higher level things, and I want to kind of get a little bit more specific around mixing. So again, when you when we think about IoT, I mean, the way we kind of look at it is it's kind of like safety at a glance, right? Through a dashboard, you can see what's going on within your devices, within multiple devices, at multiple locations. But now more than ever, there's really more ways to connect. So traditionally, our digital mixing products have been connected through building management systems, which are still obviously very, very much in use, right, through traditional protocols like BACnet and Modbus. But now we've got additional ways to connect through the cloud. And that gives us some, I think, unique capabilities, which I'll talk about. But simply by looking at a dashboard, right, or receiving an alert and then being linked to a dashboard, you can pinpoint specific things that are going on in your facilities and then deploy resources to address those issues. And I'll talk about a little bit more about kind of what's the practical side of that as well. So, and again, not all facilities have a building management system, right? So, smaller facilities may not. So this really gives them an option for remote connectivity and monitoring and alerting. So there's, again, obviously larger facilities, most of them are going to have some type of building automation system, but the smaller ones won't. So this is just another option for smaller facilities that brings value. And then kind of at a high level, when we look at, building management versus IoT. So the goal of building management is, it's really optimizing performance. And that's by providing, data on critical systems, critical assets. It's by enabling automatic control. But with building automation, sometimes the data can become somewhat siloed and difficult to integrate. And it could be to get a complete picture of the whole system. Sometimes can be difficult. And the cost of building management, incorporating a building management system is, by some estimates, between $250 and $7 a square foot. So when you think about the size of a large facility, that's going to be costly. They say on average it takes about 4 years to recover the cost, and traditionally a building automation system has about a 7 to 14-year life cycle. So, and again, that's at a very high level. Now you bring in IoT, which really has basically the same type of goals and objectives, but it allows you to do a little bit more. You can bring in additional data into play, right? An example would be bringing in weather data for an irrigation system, right? So that's probably one of the more common ones examples that you could use. With IoT, you can get data on a much more granular level, and that has a lot of value too. If you want to, the types of information and the types of sensors that you have on a particular device or throughout a system can give you a higher level of data that you can use and analyze. And again, any aspect of your facility, anywhere you can put a sensor, you can measure, you can monitor, you can collect, and all this ties again to ROI. It ties to greater safety, efficiency, liability mitigation, and this can all be managed from basically anywhere in the world or anywhere on a campus. And I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about that. And again, when we typically think of automated building monitoring, I mean, we typically think of HVAC, we typically think of lighting, security, fire. Those are the common things that are typically integrated into building management systems. And a part of this webinar is to just create some awareness around, the water side of things, because water is obviously is very critical. And some of the things that, just to kind of, again, review occupant safety and comfort. If you're a hotel, user guest experience is critical. If you're a hospital, if you're assisted living, all these things are very important. So being able to actively, proactively monitor your system, your hot water distribution system, is very critical. In terms of, again, reduction in operating costs, you're really leveraging technology. So as I talked about before, it's the kind of the efficient deployment of resources, and everybody's resource constrained these days. The ability to predict maintenance issues, potential breakdowns where you can measure equipment runtime, cycles, those type of things, and basically know when a particular product or valve may need to be repaired or maintained. Reminders of, you could base it on calendar reminders, those kind of things. So again, being able to be proactive versus reactive and really optimize the system, right? Work towards complete system optimization. And the energy efficiency we've always talked about. We talked a little bit about remote setback and temperature accuracy and control. So those are critical as well.
Bruce, at this point, do you want to do the third poll?
Yep. Please, Greg.
Right, polls open. Another yes or no. Do you connect your digital mixing valve asset through a building automation system?
If you have a digital mixing valve asset or assets.
I'll leave the poll open for a little bit longer this time so people can respond. Did have some people join late. All right. Polls closed now, and I'll pop up the results. There you go.
Okay. So 27 out of 126 responded affirmative. 30 did not. So you're pretty close to a 50-50 split there. And then 70 didn't answer the question. So those that answered it was pretty much a 50-50 split. Okay. Yeah, that's, building automation has been a traditional, and with most digital mixing valves, there are, whether it's native to the controller or it requires a kind of an add-on, I believe all digital mixing valves that I'm aware of have the capability of connecting to building automation systems.
So Bruce, we have a question come through here.
Sure.
I'll read it off. You spoke about lowering temperature overnight or during periods of low use. Given the growing concerns for Legionella and other pathogens within the water system, would lowering the temperature be a wise idea?
So I think there's a trade-off there. It may depend on the type of facility. We actually have people that we're aware of that do that. I think it's a valid point. You obviously, if you're lowering the temperature, you want to monitor it closely. You likely want to have the water, make sure the water is moving. So typically, a lot of our facilities that we see are making sure the recirculation pump is on and pushing water throughout the building. But it's a valid point. There is a trade-off between obviously temperature and Legionella. So I think it's really a facility by facility call. There may be on the healthcare side, there may be state by state or municipality, there may be things that may prevent you from doing that. Where we see it most prevalent is in office buildings, and then we've seen schools, particularly on the university side, do some of that as well. So, but a valid point. Yeah, there's always going to be that trade-off between temperature, between scalding and Legionella, right? You increase temperature, you reduce the risk of Legionella, but you increase the risk of scalding, and vice versa. So, point well taken. So controlling water temperature, this is basically, there were some studies that were done, internal studies, and basically asking what facility challenges were around they had around hot water, and it all just gets, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but it gets back to temperature, right? It's controlling water temperature, it's consistent water temperature, it's having the right water temperature at the right time at the right place. And whether it's talking about, balancing a system, a lot of people are probably familiar with overnight creep, where you've got basically a low or no draw situation, and the hot water, because of internal leakage in the valve, can migrate from the hot to the cold side, and thus the loop can warm up. That's an issue. Balancing. So, basically the takeaway on this slide is that, obviously temperature, there's a lot of things that you can monitor through digital mixing valves and through IoT or building management, but the water temperature, obviously, the mixed outlet temperature is critical in terms of safety, comfort, and mitigation. And then we also asked just kind of what would be highly valued features, right? If you're going to connect remotely, if you're going to do this through the cloud, if you're going to, look at your mobile device, what's really important? So, and this was a survey of, about 100, roughly 100, maintenance facility people. So alert notification was key. That was probably the highest, that was the highest rating. And I think for a couple reasons. Obviously, again, getting back to resources, being able to deploy resources to specific areas, as opposed to having to go around and check. If you're a big healthcare or university campus, there's a lot of resources that are required to go around. So being able to get an alert to target is critical. But the other thing that came back actually was interesting is we don't want too many alerts. So a part of that is, can you prioritize those alerts, right? Can you basically say some alerts are more critical than others? For example, if your water temperature exceeds set point for some reason, by 20 degrees, right? That may be more critical than, a temperature that's below set by next. Now, because the hot water could be an immediate scalding risk, where the lower water temperature could be a Legionella risk, but you might have, a little bit more time to respond to it. So, again, not only getting alerts, but, can those alerts be kind of prioritized so you get a quick picture of what's going on and know how to deploy your resources appropriately. Data logging was important, right? Understanding what's been going on in the system with a particular device on the mixed outlet temperature side, or being able to look at inlet water temperatures and pressures, look at return temperatures. There's a number of different things you can look at, but being able to understand and not only looking at the data, but looking at the trending, and are there things happening at particular points of a day that may lead us, to some type of maintenance, repair, or system optimization. So being able to kind of look back, very important. Report creation, that's becoming much bigger with healthcare, ASHRAE 188P. Just being able to report on your water systems is becoming more critical. And then again, the trending, being able to see trends and to see if are those trends leading you to other conclusions or issues in your facility or within your hot water distribution system. So again, we've talked about some of the high value, again, the monitoring, visibility, outlet temperature, alerts, sanitization. But you can see here on the left, I would just point out, there's kind of what a dashboard might look like, where you've got, here's the particular asset, the mixing valve, and it's controlling It's at 121 degrees and with a set points at 120. So everything's good. And you've got some trending data below there. If you can see that, where you're trending towards set point, and those bars above and below might be your high and low limits, right? And so if I'm a facility manager and I see this on this device, and I'm looking at it either over a day, a week, a month, I might say, okay, I'm pretty comfortable that there'd be, you could look at alerts, like if there's any alerts with the valve, you could check that. But overall, you're probably going to be driven to this, depending on how many devices you have. You're most likely going to be driven to look at details if you receive an alert. That's where, again, where I think, there's a lot of value around pinpointing and targeting things. We've already talked about predictive maintenance, right? Being proactive, data analysis. What can we learn about our building to accurately predict failure or to optimize systems? Performance metrics, again, dashboards are critical for just kind of being able to get a quick view, a glance at what's going on within systems. And then, again, just being able to, repairing a geographically dispersed assets, making that faster and simpler, right? Being able to see the assets, how they're performing, and then being able to address those issues. So more practically, let's take a look at, like, for example, this is a college campus, right? And you've got all kinds of buildings in a college campus, and you may have multiple devices. You may have multiple devices in every building. So if you look kind of in the upper right-hand corner, you can look at a dashboard where every one of those boxes is a location, and every location has a status bar, for example. Now I can look at my locations and I can say, okay, there's one that's red, and there's one that looks like that's yellow, and there's a bunch that are green. So the green ones I'm probably not going to pay too much attention to. The yellow one I probably want to look into, or the orange one there, and then the red one definitely needs attention. So, this is where I may click on that box and get specific information around what the alerts were, what the notifications are, how the valve is performing. And I may make adjustments remotely, or I may pick up the phone and deploy someone out to that particular building or site. And again, when you think about the size of some of these college campuses, when you think about the amount of time and effort that will save a facility manager and his staff, it really is significant. So for example, if you just look at a few facilities here, I just Googled, some of the larger universities, Penn State, that's 9,000 acres. They've got 900 plus buildings. So if obviously to go around and check hot water in 900 plus buildings isn't practical, but, and what typically happens is they're going to get a call, and somebody in a dorm is either getting too hot of water or not hot enough water, and then they're going to have to go take a look. Well, if I got that warning, ahead of time, if I knew immediately that, my phone, that phone you see there sent me an alert saying, okay, we've got an issue with high temperature. It's a high temperature hot water alert. Okay, something's going on there. Before the call comes in from the dormitory, I'm going to deploy somebody out to that particular site, and we're going to address it before there's an issue or before there's a complaint. And well, Penn State has 900 buildings. You can see some of these campuses have, 500, 600, 700 buildings plus, and cover a tremendous amount of geography. And it's really no different, for a healthcare facility. I mean, if you look at hospitals, they're large campuses too. But if I've got a number of devices, let's say in a hospital, and I can see that, I get some type of an alert, or I can look at my chart and go, okay, device number 6, it's 160 degrees. Well, is that an issue? No, it's telling me that we're running some type of sanitization cycle at that device or on that floor or in that zone. So I can quickly see that. Device number 2, there's a low temperature alert. So, maybe that might be concerning too, because at 115, that's kind of in that prime Legionella growth range. So we want to address that as well. So again, being able to have this increased visibility, again, allows you to, to target quickly. And, this is this is the I think it's the University of Miami medical campus, but you can see, okay, I got a problem. There's the target. We're going to get on that right away, right? Where everything else looks like it's in pretty good shape.
Bruce, did you want to do the next poll now?
That sounds, yep, please, Greg.
All right, next poll here. When connecting facility assets, I prefer to connect through the BAS, Wi-Fi cloud, or both. All right, give a few more seconds. And the poll results are up.
Okay. So we got 26 that said of 127 that said through some kind of building automation system, probably Modbus, BACnet. 8 through the Wi-Fi cloud. So obviously we're still, seeing this is kind of somewhat in its infancy, perhaps more on the commercial side, not knowing the full demographics of those that are in the they're listening. But both at 14. So I've read some on the integration of IoT with building management. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of initiatives moving on that, and the no answer was the highest number. So I would say, again, going back to a previous slide, right, with digital mixing, we have the ability to do both, right? Most manufacturers will give you the option to be able to do both building management and Wi-Fi. So when it comes time for connecting, there'll be plenty of options. And then finally, I just want to talk about, just again, getting back to reporting compliance. I mentioned ASHRAE 188.
Sorry to interrupt, Bruce, but just before you move on, just a point on the last thing there. Can the system, question came through, can the system be hacked if it's on the Wi-Fi?
So yes, a system can be hacked. So that's why security is critical, right? Working with a facilities IT group and making sure that you have a very secure network. And I think when you look at, if you look at concerns around IoT, I mean, obviously, security is one of them, right? I mean, and I think that's something that there's a lot of work going on around that, but you definitely need to make sure, working with the IT groups in buildings, that you have a secure network. So yes, it can be hacked, absolutely. But it's if you do your homework up front, and most if not all of manufacturers have a lot of security built into their units. And I think if you would go to the various sites and read their literature, you get a little bit of idea of what's available. But you do need to feel comfortable with it. But we've had a lot of experience working with various types of facilities, healthcare, universities, and there's always a way to get it done. But I don't think anything is unhackable these days.
It's the exact comment someone just made as well.
Yeah, you can't. You just have to do your due diligence, and we as well as other manufacturers, I'm sure, as well as the industry, is working aggressively towards some of these issues, particularly around security. I mean, we just got notified that one of our credit cards, our data in our credit cards, was hacked like 2 weeks ago. So, with a very large bank, so it happens. unfortunately. But again, this is the world we're moving to, right? And reporting, again, whether you do, you can print PDF reports, you can specify particular time frames, you can do, CSV files, Excel files where you can look at data, you can take that data, you can analyze it. Again, you can look for trends. It'll help you troubleshoot. It may be reports that need to go to a water management board in a healthcare facility. It can help address preventive maintenance. So there's a lot of value specifically around when you think about digital mixing, connected mixing around reporting. And, not only reporting on devices, but, reporting on systems. So, you want to make sure, obviously, the mixing valves that we're kind of talking about are the ones that are at the point of entry, but obviously there's a whole water delivery system that and wherever you can put a sensor, you can collect data. I don't think that's
There's another question that came through from Scott here. For reset temps, would you be resetting the? Sorry, let me start. For reset temps, you would be resetting the leaving water temperature, which is already below 140, not the incoming 140 or higher water, correct? Therefore, Legionella shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not sure. So at 140, 140 is basically where you're killing Legionella within, I want to say, seconds versus minutes, right? I think you can at lower temperatures, Legionella, let's say 120 and above. There's a certain temperature range where Legionella will not multiply; it'll remain stagnant. But when you start getting like towards 130 and above, so what we recommend, and I'm answering this question, but obviously we recommend that water temperature should be distributed at 140 throughout a building, and you should be protecting people with point of use thermostatic devices. That's kind of what we believe. So you're kind of you're making sure that you're mitigating, not eliminating, mitigating the occurrences of Legionella while protecting against scalding. And I don't know if I answered that question correctly, but if I'm getting 140 in with most digital mixing valves, or with many, you're going to be able to get 138 to 140 out. So if you set that water heater a little bit hotter than that, you're going to be guaranteed 140 out of that device. And then you send that around. Now, again, there are obviously jurisdictions and vertical markets that may not allow you to do that. But if you look at recommendations from the CDC, from ASHRAE, your hot water source, I believe, is 140 and distributed at a minimum of 124. We believe personally that should be a little bit higher, right? Because Legionella is becoming a much bigger issue. But again, it's that trade-off between, it's that risk balance trade-off that you got to play with. And obviously there's a lot of other things I think that probably many people on this call are aware of: making sure there's no dead legs, making sure you're moving water around. There's lots of different types of remediation, and that we know that many facilities, particularly in healthcare, may deploy not just one particular type of remediation. They may deploy, they may combine hot water purging with filtration, or another type, right? There's chlorinization, there's copper silver, there's all kinds of different things they can do. But I'm hoping something in that whole arc of a thought covered that question. But if it didn't, please check back or follow up with me with an email.
Very good. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, so I'm just going to conclude with a couple more slides here, and just kind of to summarize it. When you think about where are the high, where's the value to different people that might use or would be involved with IoT, digital mixing, smart and connected. And for building owners, again, if you think about it, building owners could essentially take a hotel owner, right? Hotels, I spent a little bit of time in hospitality, working in the hospitality business, and there are building owners that own numerous properties. They may own 10, 40, 50, 100 properties. They may not all be Marriotts. They may be a combination of Marriotts and Holiday Inns and Hampton Inns, but they can have there's typically somebody that oversees those operations or assets at a high level, and they have visibility. They can have visibility to all those assets and locations. So if there is an issue, now they're probably not going to be on the dashboard consistently, but if there was an alert to come out and they had a high temperature situation at one of their properties, that facility director could, or the vice president of facilities could be alerted, just if it's something critical. And it would allow that person to basically remotely, to collaborate with the on-site staff if there's an issue, just making sure that issue is addressed. And obviously, when you're a building owner, you want to make sure everybody is safe above all, and you really want to try and mitigate your liability exposure. And then again, we talked about reducing operating costs, enhancing revenue, and I think a lot of this gets not only to efficiency, obviously resources, headcount, and then minimizing downtime, right? Because that translates to revenue. If you think in a hotel, if you've got a rooms down, that's revenue, right? If you're comping rooms because of a bad shower, that's revenue loss. If you're a healthcare facility, heaven forbid, you've got beds or rooms that you can't place patients in, that's critical. So whether it's digital mixing or you're looking at systems or equipment, right? There's clearly a strong value proposition for building owners or administrators or those kind of higher level people in an organization or in a facility to ensure that as these things become more important, Legionella becomes more more prevalent, or more, at least has higher visibility. That's really important. If you look at the person right on site, the facility manager, and say the people that work for the facility manager, right? You've got visibility to everything. You're getting alerts. You're addressing alerts. You're able to respond to targeted areas. So you're being, again, proactive. The whole minimizing downtime is obviously critical. Making sure your rooms and baths and showers and is safe and is up and running, so it's producing revenue. And again, just kind of reviewing data history and trends is also very very important, as we've talked about. And finally, somebody that we traditionally well, we haven't worked with as much, but are working more and more with infection control and water management people. So again, with the reporting now, particularly in healthcare, with water quality, with water safety, with water plans, digital mixing can provide a lot of additional value to this particular type of person within an organization, this particular title. So very, very critical there.
So one more poll, final poll, that'll pop up now. Cloud IoT connectivity is the future of my facility projects. Agree or disagree?
So I think basically what we're asking here is, do you see, even though if the adoption is low in your particular facility, do you see the value, or is it down the road, or you see this is where things are moving? Are you on board with that, or are you still kind of hesitant, or you still need more to be more to be proven around whether it's ROI or security or those kind of things, just kind of get just a general feeling for where you're at.
Looks like we got a lot of participation in this one. A lot of people answered. So let me just close it out now, and the results should be up in a few seconds. All right, results are up.
Yeah. So it's pretty, out of 125, glad to see most people are still on board here. 50 agree, 9 disagree, and then 66 that did not answer. So I think that's pretty indicative of, I think people, there's more awareness. Again, the value propositions I think are being communicated more clearly, or will be over the coming, months and years. Um, whether it's for your digital mixing systems or other systems, but clearly this is where things are moving quickly, and particularly in the commercial space where, maybe a little bit slower to adopt, but definitely moving in this direction, and particularly around, water. Again, when you think about water and how critical it is, um, in a building, in a facility of all types, very important. So that's all I've got. That's kind of a high level overview, and if you have any any questions, we'll certainly open up for more.
Someone's saying here that's great to see your face.
Oh gosh. You notice I was looking at my picture versus my picture now when I see myself, and it's the hair has gotten a little
Don't.
brighter.
We did have a few questions come through, but before I get to them, I just wanted to mention some of our digital tools that we have available for you guys on our website. I just put in the chat the links to them. So just to quickly go over them, Spec Hub. Spec Hub is our project specification tool. With this tool, you're able to build code compliant specs in just a few minutes for a variety of products, including mixing valves, digital mixing valves, all from one place. So when you're done putting together the spec, Spec Hub will automatically generate all the documentation you need, like submittals, plumbing schedules, long and short specs, written specs, and all the BIM files, and you can share any of that with your colleagues within the tool itself. We also have Selexit. Selexit is our online configurator. It can generate precise, optimal system configurations for you. It's going to help you accelerate your sizing, configuration, and selection process for your mixing valve systems, as well as snow melting and ACVs. And finally, we have our e-learning courses. We call it our WattsWorks online e-learning system on our website, where you can take the courses of a variety of topics, including digital mixing products. Sign up for free, take the course, and you can earn tokens to redeem for some great gifts as well. So, all that being said, I did see a few more questions come through, Bruce, for
Okay,
us.
sure.
First one here. What about the cost given the higher construction costs due to the pandemic?
Okay.
In reference to the last slide.
Right. So maybe I'm not sure. So yes, because of maybe referring to um, maybe labor shortages, or the ability to actually, material shortages. I'm assuming maybe that's what they're referring to. I'm not sure what the question is, though. I mean, clearly, yeah, clearly costs have been increasing with the pandemic because of, yeah, labor and material shortages, and then just, essential, what's been, what geographic areas have been deemed essential, or types of facilities have been deemed essential. But I think things are opening up now with the vaccine, although I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell day to day. You hear, it seems at some point things seem to be opening up, and other times you hear something and you're not so sure. But
Yeah, Amanda just added to that question there. How do you justify it to the owner given the increased cost of wood studs, piping systems, and the like?
so how do you justify the cost of I guess maybe smart and connected products? I'm going to take the question that way. So again, I think it's something that we as manufacturers need to do a better job, or a more precise job around selling the value proposition and really monetizing smart and connected products. So if I can show you, right, in a building that or a large campus, right, it may be, let's just say, a large campus where, if you're paying a 20% premium over, let's say, or a 25% premium over a standard thermostatic valve, but I can show you the value that really brings you. we have talked with and had experience with a number of facility people, on-site facility people, and the benefit of being able to, we had one, let's, for example, we had one facility person who literally said, I can sit here, I'm sitting in my office and I can see the hot water at various dorms on this particular campus. And they had a call from the dorm. I used this kind of earlier, but it was actually a real situation where they had a call from the dorm complaining about hot water. And he immediately saw that the mixing valve, the 1017 device, was performing correctly. So he said, I immediately was able to rule that out, and we sent somebody over to look at other potential issues in the system downstream. So, you know, if we can sell the value correctly, really identify and monetize it, and make a convincing argument to building owners and facility people, I for really what is not a huge premium now, that, you know, I think that's what needs to happen and where we need to go. And certainly we're more than willing to do that. We have a lot of work into that already, as I'm sure other manufacturers are that are selling these types of devices. So kind of as an industry and as a group, I think we're all kind of moving in the same direction. But it's really selling the real value and being able to put, you know, dollars and cents around it.
Another question came through here. Will the unit tell why the mixing is not occurring, i.e. DHW is too cold or mixing valve is malfunctioning?
So yeah, I mean, I guess it's going to depend on whose product you're talking about, but you know, there are other things that can tell, you know, that can kind of, if let's just say your mixed outlet temperature is too high or too low. Well, I mean, it may tell you that for some reason, if you looked at, you know, if you ran a report or you looked at the data, it may tell you that, you know, you may see that your, let's say your hot water pressure is spiking. You know, you can look at that. You can say, okay, my hot water for whatever reason is spiking at this particular time, or my cold or my hot water temperature, incoming temperature is dropping. I'm talking about incoming pressure and temperature. So there's things you'll be able to look at and help you diagnose, you know, what's going on. It may tell you, you can tell things like, is my device even online, right? Is it connected? Is it not connected? You can you know, there's certain things that you can deduce from the type of sensors that you have on the product. You know, is there something going on with my hot water heater, right? That may be we had an instance like that at a particular site where they were saying that the valve wasn't controlling. Well, we came to figure out that they were having issues with their boiler, and what they eventually confessed to us was they had been having issues with it. It was old and needed to be replaced. So the incoming hot water was impacting the outlet temperature of the valve, trying to, you know, and so you know, hopefully that kind of gives you some insight, right? If you have pressures, it may tell you. If you got issues with pressure, it may tell you you got a clogged check stop, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can look at and make deductions from, you know, what might be going on.
A couple more comments here that came through. Cost is always a concern, but cost must be balanced against risk. Data and record keeping is becoming more important as we learn more about water and the associated pathogens. Records can minimize risk of litigations.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know, there's a lot of, when you look at report keeping, and when you think about it, but you know, particularly let's say in healthcare, right? There's a lot of manual effort that goes on, and there's a lot of ways and opportunities that digital and smart and connected can streamline that and automate that process. And that again is potentially another a high value proposition that again needs to be clearly defined and clearly communicated.
Yes, and another comment here. Costs would be justified in reduced liability and insurance costs. Marketing by Watts should be directed at insurance agencies underwriting facility construction.
Yeah, excellent point. Very true. Excellent point.
That is it with all the questions and comments. Or the final one, actually, Sydney Johnson wanted me to tell you that was her who commented on your face. So that's the final comment I got for you.
All right. Hi, Sydney.
But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Bruce, and everyone who joined us today. If you have any other, logistical or specification type questions, you can about Spec Hub or Slex that I mentioned earlier, you can direct them towards me, Greg Jackman. Bruce, if you want to scroll to the last slide just so they can see our emails. And
Yeah.
then for the more technical topic related questions about digital mixing, you can reach out to Bruce. You can reach either of us on LinkedIn as well. Connect with us there. I also just wanted to mention that we'd love to hear from you guys on any topics you would like to hear or see covered in this series. We want to make this webinar series about you guys, so always feel free to shoot me a note what you'd like to see, any thoughts, suggestions, improvements we can make. So we're always open to that sort of feedback. And then finally, within the next few days, you'll be getting a follow-up email with a link to a page with the recording of this webinar, the CEU quiz. If some of your colleagues weren't able to make it and they still want to earn that zero point 0.1 ASPE credit, they can complete the quiz, earn the credit. You also find links to our Powers IntelliStation, our digital water mixing system, and IntelliStation Junior, our digital mixing valve, as well as Spec Hub selects it, and also a link to be contacted by your local rep if you wish to do that as well. So that is all we have. Thank you all again. Thank you, Bruce, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Feel free to reach out via email. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.